listen closely, you can hear it. It's in the way they speak. Maybe they'll change careers. Maybe they'll start that business. Maybe next year will be different. Maybe. It sounds harmless, but it's the reason they stay right where they are. Because maybe isn't a plan, maybe isn't a decision, and you can't build anything real on something that weak. I've heard it from people with talent, with opportunity, with vision. They say they're thinking about it, still figuring it out, or just want to be sure before committing. But what they don't realize is that life doesn't wait for certainty. It rewards commitment, it rewards movement, and it punishes hesitation. The longer you wait, the heavier it gets. The more you delay, the more momentum you lose. That's the danger of maybe. It doesn't just hold you in place, it pulls you backward. You want a better future? You're going to have to build it, brick by brick. And you can't lay those bricks with one foot in and one foot out. You can't start something real if you're already thinking about quitting. You can't make progress if you're still trying to keep every option open. At some point, you've got to shut the door and move forward. Maybe won't get you there. Only commitment will. I've watched people stay stuck in maybe for years. Smart people, capable people, but they never picked a direction. They never said, this is the thing. They waited for conditions to be perfect, for feelings to line up, for the risk to disappear, and it never happened. So they stayed in the same place, telling the same story, hoping life would somehow move for them. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't reward potential. It rewards action. Now, the good news is, you don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to know every detail. But you do need to decide. You do need to move. You do need to get out of maybe and into motion. Because once you commit, even a little, something shifts. Momentum starts building. Clarity starts showing up. Confidence starts forming. But it only happens after you move, not before. So that's what this is about. Getting honest about what maybe is really costing you. Breaking the habit of hesitation. Learning how to trade indecision for action. Because the future you want is possible. But it won't come from maybe. It'll come from clarity, commitment, and consistent follow-through. Maybe feels polite. It feels smart. It feels cautious. But underneath all that, it's usually just fear dressed up in softer language. People don't like to say no. They don't like to admit they're afraid to move. So instead, they say, maybe they'll start next month. Maybe once things calm down. Maybe when they have more information. But deep down, they already know. They're not planning. They're postponing. And you've got to be careful with that. Because the more you say maybe, the more natural it becomes. At first, it's just a delay. Then it becomes a pattern. Then it becomes a personality. Suddenly, you're not the person who decides. You're the person who avoids deciding. You've trained yourself to hesitate. You've made room for doubt. And now doubt is running the show. And the longer it stays in charge, the harder it gets to remove it. What makes it tricky is that maybe doesn't feel like a no. It feels open-ended. It feels flexible. But here's the truth. Maybe is a silent no. It's a no without the honesty. It's a no that doesn't take responsibility. Because if you say no clearly, you're choosing. You're closing a door. But if you say maybe, you keep the door cracked open just in case. Just in case something better comes along. Just in case the fear fades. Just in case you feel different tomorrow. But that's the problem. Tomorrow comes, and you're still saying maybe. I've met people who've been maybeing for years. Maybe I'll leave the job. Maybe I'll move to a new city. Maybe I'll start that side business. And while they're waiting for a sign, The years pass, and they look back and realize nothing changed. Not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't. Maybe gave them an excuse to stay where it was safe. But safety wasn't the goal. Growth was. And growth doesn't live in maybe. The hard truth is that maybe offers the comfort of not deciding, but it also guarantees the pain of no progress. You don't move forward when you hesitate. You don't build anything meaningful when every decision is up for renegotiation. And the longer you stay in that space, the harder it gets to take a real step forward. You want to know who moves ahead in life? The ones who say yes, the ones who say no, the ones who pick a path and walk it. Not the ones who keep circling the decision, not the ones who stay on the edge of the pool, analyzing the water. The ones who get in, who commit, who act. Because commitment creates clarity, but maybe keeps you confused. And I get it. It's scary to choose. Because the minute you choose, you close off other options. You can't hide behind potential anymore. You're exposed. You've got something to prove, and that's uncomfortable. But it's also where everything real begins. That discomfort, that's the sign you're finally out of maybe and into motion. Maybe is a clever way to stay comfortable while pretending you're considering. But you're not considering, you're avoiding. And the sooner you call it what it is, the sooner you can do something about it. So the next time you hear yourself saying maybe, pause and ask yourself, am I buying time or am I buying regret? Am I protecting myself from pain or am I postponing something I know I should have done already? Be honest. Because maybe might sound safe, but it's not solid. And you can't build anything strong on something that's soft. Confidence doesn't disappear overnight. It fades, slowly, quietly, one avoided decision at a time. Every time you say that you'll decide later and then don't, something gets a little weaker. You lose a little trust in yourself. You hesitate again the next time, and then again and again, until eventually you don't just doubt the decision. You start doubting your ability to decide at all. That's what indecision does. It doesn't just stall your progress, it rewires your self-image. You start seeing yourself as someone who second guesses everything, someone who can't make things happen, someone who needs more time, more reassurance, more approval. And the more you see yourself that way, the harder it gets to break the pattern. Because now you're not just making a decision, you're trying to overcome an identity. You know where real confidence comes from? It comes from doing, from deciding, from taking a step, even when you're unsure, especially when you're unsure. Because that's how you prove to yourself that you can move without guarantees, that you don't need everything to be perfect before you take action. And every time you do that, you get stronger, you get more certain, you start trusting yourself again. People wait for confidence before they move, but that's backwards. You don't get confident first, you get confident later. Confidence is a reward for showing up, for doing the thing you said you'd do, for building proof, small, consistent proof that you can count on yourself. And the more often you do that, the more solid you become. Because now your confidence isn't based on hype. It's based on history. It's built on the simple fact that when you said you'd show up, you did. When you said you'd follow through, you did. You didn't need to feel ready. You didn't need to be perfect. You just needed to act. But if you keep hesitating, if you keep putting things off, if you keep living in maybe, that confidence doesn't have anything to grow on. Because you're not giving it anything solid. You're giving it delay. You're giving it doubt. And you're training yourself to expect failure before you've even started. It's like trying to lift weights without ever touching the gym. Confidence is built through resistance, through tension, through showing up when it's easier not to. If you avoid every decision, every commitment, every hard conversation, you rob yourself of the opportunity to get stronger. You miss the reps, and without the reps, the muscle never grows. Now, here's the good news. Confidence doesn't require huge wins. It doesn't require dramatic action. All it takes is one clean step forward, one decision you follow through on, one action you take even when your hands shake, and then another, and then another. And soon, you're no longer the person who hesitates. You're the person who moves. So if you've been stuck in indecision, if your confidence feels thin, don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for certainty. Start building your way out. Choose something, anything. Take the next small step, and then the next one. Because confidence isn't found, it's built. And the longer you live in maybe, the longer you delay that construction. You don't need more time. You don't need more research. You need movement. You need traction. Because motion feeds belief, and belief becomes identity. And once you start believing again, hesitation doesn't stand a chance. If you want to break free from maybe, you're going to need more than a good mood. You're going to need discipline. Because discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't wait for clarity. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It shows up every day, rain or shine, confident or uncertain, motivated or not. And that's exactly why it works. Motivation is inconsistent. It's loud one day and gone the next. You might feel excited today and tired tomorrow. You might feel clear this morning and confused by the afternoon. If your progress depends on your feelings, you'll always be inconsistent. But if it depends on your discipline, you can make steady progress, even in the middle of chaos. I've seen people with all the passion in the world crash and burn because they never built a system. And I've seen people with no flair, no spotlight, no magic, just quiet, steady discipline, build something incredible. They weren't driven by emotion. They were driven by commitment. And because of that, they didn't need to start over every time their mood changed. They kept going. And that consistency is what made the difference. You can be unsure and still get better. You can be afraid and still make progress. You can feel stuck and still take the next step, but only if you've trained yourself to move regardless. That's what discipline does. It pulls you through the moments where maybe used to hold you back. It becomes your system, your baseline, your structure. And when everything else feels uncertain, that structure keeps you anchored. You don't need a 10-year plan to start. You don't need perfect clarity. You just need a few key disciplines. Small, manageable, repeatable. Read a little every day. Move your body. Write something. Build something. Track your finances. Have honest conversations. It's not complicated, but it's powerful. Because every time you repeat that discipline, you reinforce your identity. You stop being the person who waits and start becoming the person who builds. That's the real shift. You're not just breaking a habit of hesitation. You're forming a new pattern entirely. You're telling yourself that this is who you are now. And the more you follow through, the less room there is for maybe. Because you're too busy executing, too busy building, too busy living inside your commitments to entertain indecision. It doesn't matter if the habit is small. All that matters is that it's real and that it happens daily. Don't underestimate what a few consistent disciplines can do over time. They compound. They create momentum. They build proof. And most importantly, they break the loop of waiting. Because when you're in motion, you don't need to wonder anymore. You're too busy creating answers. I've seen this change everything. People who were stuck for years, stuck in hesitation, stuck in doubt, stuck in their own head, break free because they committed to a daily practice. Something simple, something boring. But they did it anyway. And after a while, it wasn't just what they were doing, it was who they were becoming. That's the exit. You want out of maybe? Build discipline. Choose a few things. Keep them small. Make them non-negotiable. Let them anchor your day, and let those anchors pull you forward, one action at a time, one decision at a time, one honest effort at a time. Because once you've got discipline, maybe doesn't stand a chance. Most people are waiting for certainty. They want to be sure it's the right decision. They want to feel confident before they commit. They want to see the full path before they take the first step. But that's not how it works. The path doesn't show up until you start walking. And the confidence, that comes after you move, not before. People say they don't want to make the wrong choice, but indecision is already the wrong choice. Waiting to know everything before starting is just another version of fear. It looks smart. It sounds responsible, but it's just another way to hide. Because deep down, everyone knows. You don't get the answers up front. You get them along the way. You want to know how people build great things? They commit first. They decide they're doing it, even if they don't know exactly how. Even if step 3 isn't clear yet. They don't wait for a full map. They start with the first step. And once they do, something opens up. Momentum kicks in. Options appear. And the next step becomes obvious. I've never seen someone figure it all out in their head and then execute perfectly. That's not how progress works. You figure it out in motion. You adjust as you go. You correct course as you learn. But none of that happens until you commit. No movement, no feedback. No feedback, no growth. I've had times in my life where I was waiting. I had the idea. I had the desire. But I kept stalling because I didn't know how it would all unfold. And nothing happened. The longer I waited, the more doubt crept in. But the moment I said, I'm doing this, and started, even without a perfect plan, things changed. People showed up. Opportunities appeared. Energy returned. Not because I had everything figured out, but because I made a decision. That's the power of commitment. It tells your mind, we're going. It stops the loop of hesitation. It silences the voice of maybe. And it opens the door to progress. Because now, instead of analyzing everything from the sidelines, you're on the field. You're learning. You're adjusting. You're making it real. And let's be honest, you're never going to feel fully ready. You're never going to have every answer in advance. If you're waiting to feel fearless, you'll be waiting forever. Fear doesn't go away before the decision. It fades after the follow through. Once you take action, the fear loses power, but not before. So if you're stuck in your head, waiting for clarity, waiting for a sign, stop, make a decision, choose a direction, commit, and let the commitment force you to figure it out. Because it will. Commitment sharpens focus. It creates urgency. It pushes you to find solutions you'd never consider if the stakes were optional. That's how things get built. Not with a perfect blueprint, but with a clear decision, followed by messy action, followed by steady refinement. And before long, what started as uncertainty becomes something solid. Not because you had all the answers, but because you were brave enough to start. So commit first. Figure it out as you go. And trust that movement, not certainty, is what builds the future. The moment you commit to something, the world starts testing it. Distractions show up. Doubt creeps in. People start asking questions. You hit a setback, and suddenly you're not so sure anymore. And if you're not careful, you find yourself back in maybe, questioning a decision you already made, reopening doors you already closed, reconsidering things that don't need to be reconsidered. That's how momentum gets lost. Not all at once, but in little moments. One small compromise, one skipped habit, one excuse that sounds reasonable. And before you know it, the direction you were building starts drifting. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't protect it. You didn't guard what you started. See, commitment isn't something you say once. It's something you prove daily. And protecting your direction means being clear on what matters and stubborn about doing it. It means not letting temporary emotions undo permanent decisions. It means not letting bad days rewrite good plans. You made that choice for a reason. Hold that reason steady when everything else starts to shake. You're going to have days when you feel like quitting, days when nothing works, days when you wonder if you made the wrong call. But those days don't mean you're off course. They just mean you're in the middle. And the middle is messy. The middle is loud. But the middle doesn't last forever. The people who build something real, the ones who actually finish what they start, aren't the ones who never waver. They're the ones who keep going anyway. They're the ones who decided that doubt isn't a reason to stop. It's just part of the process. And they protect their direction by sticking to what they said they'd do, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's difficult. So how do you do that? How do you stay locked in when the emotion wears off? You build anchors, habits, routines, structures that keep you steady when motivation disappears. You build structure around your commitment, so you don't have to renegotiate it every day. You don't ask whether you feel like doing it. You say this is what you do, and you do it. You protect your circle. Because some people aren't building, they're floating. And floating people love to pull others back into uncertainty. You make a move, and they question whether it's smart. Not because they've analyzed it, but because they haven't moved in years. You've got to guard your mind against that, not with anger, but with focus. Stay around people who reinforce your direction, not people who question it every time the wind changes. And here's the key. You protect your direction by remembering why you started. Not the surface reason, the deeper one. The thing that mattered before things got hard. Because when life presses in, the only thing strong enough to hold you steady is a reason that still matters under pressure. So don't let noise pull you off course. Don't let doubt rewrite your decision. Don't let one tough week make you forget the commitment you made when you were clear. You picked this direction for a reason. Stand on that. Protect it. And keep moving. Because the future you want still lives on the other side of discipline and maybe still has nothing to offer. Maybe sounds safe, sounds smart, sounds like you're thinking things through. But if you zoom out and look at the life it builds, you'll see it's not safety. It's stagnation. It's hesitation wrapped in polite language. It's potential with no direction. And you can't build anything solid on that. Not a career, not a relationship, not a future. You look back 5 years from now, and you won't remember what you were thinking about. You'll remember what you did, what you chose, what you built, not the plan you were considering, not the idea you almost committed to. The future gets shaped by action, always. So if you're in maybe right now, if you've been circling a decision, waiting for a sign, holding out for certainty, here it is. This is the sign. You've waited long enough. The longer you wait, the heavier it gets. But one move, one real commitment, and everything starts to shift. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to have every answer. You just have to move, decide, act, anchor yourself to something solid, and build from there. Because maybe won't carry you forward. It never has. It never will. But commitment, discipline, follow through, those are the tools that build something real. And that's the whole point. Build something real. Something that lasts, something that matters.